Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. On today's class we'll be making a transparent corset. So this video is in two parts. This is the first part of the video and I'll be posting the second part again because the video is quite long. So I've gone ahead to mark out my starting point. And I'll also be making use of an already made cup for this corset. So this line I'll be using it as my starting point. From that line, what I'm going to do is to mark ½ inch. After marking the ½ inch downwards, I'm going to take my ruler and I'll connect, drawing a straight line. After I'm done drawing the line, I'm going to bring out my cup and I'll place it on this part. So that line will serve as a guideline for my cup. I'll make sure my cup starts at that point and I'm going to place it to meet the other line or my starting line. After placing it this way, I'm going to draw out the shape I have at this point. But before I do that, I'm going to place my tape. So this point where my cup ends automatically becomes my underbust. And if you can see, the ending of the cup at the other side ends at my chest line. My chest line is 7 inches. So I'll go ahead and I will draw out the shape of the cup. So while drawing it out, please don't press on your cup to avoid getting a wrong shape. So I'll carefully place my cup and I'm going to trace out the shape. And make sure your cup while placing starts at that ½ inch that you marked. I'll take my tape and then I'm going to place my tape at my underbust. That's where my cup stops, and I'm going to draw a straight line from that point. After drawing the straight line, I'll place my tape at my underbust, which is 12, and I'm going to mark my waist length, which is 17. After marking my waist length, I'm going to mark where my corset top will stop. So I marked 20. So if you notice, the top is not really on the hip, it's stopped above the hip. So that's why I'm making use of 20 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark out all my vertical measurements. After doing that, I'm just going to use my marker and I'm going to connect, drawing a straight line. I'll outline where my top ends and where my waist length is, and I'll go ahead and outline my underbust line too. After underlining my underbust or outlining it, I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to outline the curve that we drew earlier, the curve from the cup, so that it will be very visible. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to pick my already made cup and I'm going to place it back. The reason why I'm doing this is I'm going to take my body circumference measurement. So at my bust, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Please note the measurement started at the beginning part of this pattern paper. So after that, I marked ½ inch for joining. You don't really need much allowance for this. At my underbust, I'm going to insert my underbust circumference divided by 4, and I'm also going to mark ½ inch for joining allowance. After marking that, I'll go down to my waistline. So at my waistline, I won't be marking exactly my waist measurement. So I'm going to be minusing 2 inches from my waist. So my waist is 28, so I'm going to minus 2 inches, making it 26, and I'm going to divide 26 by 4. After dividing that, I have 6.5, and I'm going to mark 6.5. Then I'm going to mark ½ inch for joining allowance. So I'll go down to my top length. At my top length, I'm going to mark my waist circumference, but I'm going to be adding 1 inch to that part because I'll be needing ease. And if you notice, the top did not stop at the hip, it's slightly on top. So that's why I'm going to be inserting my waist circumference. Next, I'll be connecting all my lines So I'll connect from my starting point to my underbust. From my underbust, I'm going to connect it down to my waist length. From my waist length, I'm going to connect it down to my top length. So like I mentioned earlier, at my top length, I marked my waist circumference, but I added 1 inch extra for ease, just in case. Then after that, I'll take my marker and outline what I have marked out already. As you can see, the pattern is very easy and beginner friendly. After doing that, I'm just going to place my tape, and the next thing I'm going to mark is my nipple to nipple. I won't be needing that in this corset because I won't be cutting through it, but just for tutorial sake, I'm just going to be marking out my dart lines. So after marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2, I'm going to draw it out, use my ruler and my marker, and I'm going to outline it. After doing that, I'm going to mark out my dart intake at both sides. That's 1/2 inch at both sides, and I'm going to connect it. After connecting it, my pattern is almost ready. So what I'll do is I'll take my tape, and at the cup area, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch round. So the reason why I'm marking this is for joining allowance. When you're going to be joining your cup, your already made cup, to the body of your corset, so you'll be needing this. So you can also use 0.3 if you don't want your allowance to be much, because you're still going to trim it out after joining it. After marking out the 1/2 inch, I'm going to use my tape and I'm going to outline it so that it will be very visible. So with this, my front pattern is ready, and I'm just going to cut it out. Please, at this point, if you find my video very interesting and educative, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, like, and also share. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always viewing and watching my channel. So with this, my front pattern is ready, and we are going over to the back pattern. So for my back pattern, I'm just going to place my front pattern, and I'm just going to cut out what I have initially. After cutting it out, I'll go ahead and I'll unpin the patterns. Next, I'm going to be placing my tape, and I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So I'm going to mark it from the beginning of the pattern to the end of the pattern, and I'll go ahead and I'm going to draw a straight line. Coming down to the lower part, I'll be inserting my dart intake, so I'll be marking 1/2 on both sides. But note, for this tutorial, I won't be cutting through. I'm just going to place it on my mesh, and I will just cut out what I have. So you can decide to cut yours and join back. So at the ending of the pattern, I'm going to be cutting out 1 inch. First, I will mark out that 1 inch before I'm going to cut it out. So this 1 inch is not compulsory. You can go ahead and mark out 2 inches, cut out 2 inches. But I'm working with a net, so I wouldn't want much stretching that would tear the net. So I'll just go ahead and cut out 1 inch. So after cutting that, my back pattern is ready. This is what I have after I'm done cutting the front and the back pattern. The next thing I'm going to do is to place my pattern and cut it out on a net or mesh. So I didn't find a skin tone net, so I had to make use of what I had available in the house. So before placing and cutting, you have to check the part that is stable and the part that is stretchy. So this is stretchy and this part is stable, so I'll be cutting with the part that is more stable to avoid too much excess material or excess net for my transparent corset. So I will place and I'll cut out my pattern. So I've gone ahead and I've cut out my pattern. This is what I have, and I added 1/2 inch on top and 1/2 inch below. Next is to cut out the material to cover the cup area. I cut out these parts from the cup area. So what I'm just going to do, I'll place my material on fold and I'll place the pattern. Then I'll go ahead and I'm going to mark 2 inches round it. After marking 2 inches round it, I'm just going to cut it out. So I'll be creating 4 pieces, one for the back side of the cup, one for the front side of the cup. So I'll be doing for 2 sides of the cup. I'm going to pin down my fabric. After pinning it out, I'm just going to find the center of what I have. When I mark the center at the ending parts of this fabric, I'm just going to be marking 1 inch on both sides. From there, I'm going to connect it back to the center, and I'm going to mark or cut out what I have marked. After I'm done marking out and cutting what I have, I'm just going to spread open to show you what I have, and then you're going to join it back with 1/2 inch. So you'll be cutting this for 2 sides of the cup. So for the front pattern, I cut out 2 pieces, then I went ahead to sew 1/2 inch on the cup area to hold it down to avoid shifting. Keep that aside, and I'm going to bring over my back pattern. So at my back pattern, I also did the same. So I've gone ahead and I've joined this piece. This is what I have. So you're going to place this on this side of the cup and you're going to pin. So I'll start with the back part first. You're going to pin and sew, and then you're going to just place this and you're going to also pin and sew. I've gone ahead and I've pinned it from the back. This is what I have. So I'm just going to sew it with a pinch and then bring it back. So I'm going to take this fabric and I'm going to cover the front part. I'll pin it, then sew on that same line and then cut it out with 1/2 inch. So this is my cup and I've gone ahead and I sewed it. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to create my boning channel for the corset. But before I create my boning channel, I'm going to be sewing the side. I'm going to join the side with 1/2 inch and then join the other side with 1/2 inch, and I'll be joining it in front. After joining it, I will trim out the excess that I have. After I'm done joining, this is what I have, and I'll go ahead and I'll trim out the excess on top like I said. After trimming the excess, I'll go ahead and I'll iron the net with a low heat, and then I'll go ahead and create my boning channel. After trimming my excess, I went ahead to create a boning channel. So I'll be showing you how I made the boning channel. So first I'll be explaining before we go to the sewing machine. So I sewed with 1/2 and I flipped it over, and I sewed with 1/2 and then I top stitched at both sides. So I'm going to create another boning channel, and then I'll create at where I cut out the excess, and then you can create as many as you want. So let's go over to the sewing machine. So I'm trying to create a boning channel. First, you're going to sew with 1/2 inch. So while sewing, you're going to be very careful and also maintain a very straight line. If not, your boning channel won't be looking nice. After sewing that first part, I'm just going to cut out the thread. Next, I'll be removing the pin that I use in holding the material. So if you notice that I cut out my fabric single, I didn't cut out the fabric I'm working with on fold, so it's left for you to cut it double, but I like mine being single this way. It makes my work look easier and not bulky. Then afterwards, I'm just going to fold it. I'm going to fold it with 1/2 inch, and while folding it, I'll make sure it is straight. Then after folding it, I'll go ahead and I will top stitch on it. So while top stitching on it, you should make sure what you have is neat and is following a straight line, because it will be in front of your corset. And make sure you use the same color of thread. Please, while sewing, if you notice that you're going to have difficulties in folding it in, you can as well pin to make it easier for you to sew. So this is it. I'm done top stitching at the other side, so I'll just place it over the under the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew or top stitch on it at the edge slightly. So with this, it will make it more relaxed and look neater. So with this, I'm done creating the boning channel. So you can insert your sewable boning or your plastic boning later, and if you can see, the back is also neat. After this, next is to attach my cup to the body of the corset. But before I do that, I'm going to trim out little on top of the cup. After trimming it out to fit the space I have for the cup, I'll go ahead and I'll take my pin and I'll pin it to the cup area. So while pinning it, you're going to pin it in front, because whatever you're sewing now, you're going to join it in front, and you're going to use your bias strip to cover it later, in order to have a neat finishing at the back. Since it's a transparent corset, you won't like to be having rough edges behind. After I'm done pinning it round, I'll go over to the machine and I'm going to sew with 1/2 inch to join the cup to the body. So this is it. I've gone ahead and I've joined the other part of the cup. So I'm going to sew carefully with 1/2 inch to join this other part of the cup. And please, when joining this part of the cup, be careful to only sew out the allowance you added, and do not undersew the allowance you also added. If not, it won't be giving you the required results that you need. At this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, like, share, and also drop your comment at the comment section. After sewing, I'm just going to carefully remove the pins. After removing the pins, this is what I have. So as you can see, the cup is sitting properly, so yours should also be sitting this way. So I'm going to flip my corset to the back to show you what the back part looks like. So I've flipped my corset to the back. This is what my back looks like. So as you can see, I have a very neat finishing. And this is how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be looking very neat at the back, because you won't be attaching lining to the back. Next is to wrap up the front part. So you're going to be doing this with a bias strip, or you're going to cut out a fabric forming a bias strip. So I went ahead and I cut out a bias strip with the material I'm working with. So you can use an ordinary bias, or you can just cut out your own bias. So the measurement of my bias is 1.5. So you can cut 2 inches and put it on fold. So before I attach the bias to the cup area, I'm just going to make sure I trim out little excess that I have there. So with this, it will make joining or sewing the bias to that part to be less bulky, and it will also make it easier for you to sew at that point, giving you a neater finishing. Note, when you're trimming off, make sure you don't trim out your already made cup. After trimming out this side, I'll go ahead and I'll also trim out the other side of the cup too. The next step I'm going to be taking is to wrap up the cup area with a bias strip that I have cut. So I'm going to place it on fold. Like I said earlier, I cut out 1.5 inch. So I'll fold it and place the rough edge at that point. After sewing, I'll now flip it back and I'll sew. So I will start with this part. Then I'll place the rough edge, the cut parts first, and I'm going to sew carefully round the cup area. Next step you're going to take after sewing the first side of the bias is to fold over to the other side so that you can conceal the rough edges you have at that point. So if you're going to find it difficult to fold as you're sewing, you can go ahead and pin it exactly the way I did before sewing. And especially if you're a beginner, it is advisable for you to just fold it first and then top stitch on it. And when top stitching, top stitch closely to the end of the bias strip, whether the already made bias or the one you cut out from your fabric. So I'm done sewing this part, so I'm going to unpin the pins on it. So as you can see, it's very neat, it's looking very neat. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to sew the other side of the cup. But with this, we are going to be stopping this video here because the video is getting too long, and I'll be posting the other part of the video later. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also leave your comment at the comment section.